On Open yesterday, President Donald Trump had his State of the Union address. He covered several topics such as the border wall, improving U.S. infrastructure, and banning late-term abortions and more. Here to discuss this and more, J.C. Polanco, political and legal analyst. He joins us here on Open. J.C., good to have you. Hey, good morning. Listen, I want to get right at it. The President's State of the Union address yesterday, a lot can be said. Let's walk it through from the beginning. Normally when the president comes in, it usually takes several minutes for him to have the opportunity to have handshakes, talk to people coming down the aisle. And yesterday seemed to be the fastest from the back door all the way to the podium. Did you notice?
I noticed that, he's a very different type of president. And even in pomp and circumstance, he's going to do things a little differently. I remember in the old days, Eliot Engel would wait on the aisle from about 4 p.m. or maybe even sleep over the night before to get that seat so he can shake the president's hand. I didn't see Eliot Engel there last night. I don't know how many non-Republicans were out there trying to shake the president's hand, so it may have been one of the reasons why it was faster than normal. But if you notice, Nancy Pelosi didn't even introduce the president. Normally, that's how it happens, and that's something that he wanted. So I think he changed things a little bit. He changed the order of things to do things like he wanted.
Yeah, well, when we talk about the order of things, we knew that in the beginning that possibly it would be a bipartisan speech in the beginning. People thought talking a little bit more about love and unity. But before we could get too far into it, we understood partisan politics came into play. Your thoughts on the president?
Well, listen, he had a job last night. We are a divided country. His job last night was to try to unite the country. He also had another duty, which is, and this is just political, he needed to make sure that his base stayed with him and that he brought over center-right moderates to his side. If last night people felt as if he extended an olive branch to the Democrats and secured his Republican base, it was a success. And CBS took a poll overnight and showed that over 70% of Americans thought that it was a successful speech. Well, obviously, about 20% of Democrats did, but that's neither here nor there. You always expect that kind of partisanship to happen. Mm-hmm. I think that he had opportunities there, Darren, to be a little nicer, a little kinder, a little I've made mistakes. I've heard you, like Obama said during his presidency when he lost the Congress. I'm listening. I got you. That didn't come out. There should have been a little more humility. I didn't see that either. And I did see the Trump streak that we know, that combative, I will build the wall, I will get it done no matter what. And I think that Americans are okay with it now. I think Americans understand that this is President Trump, that he's going to claim credit for things that he didn't do, that he's going to misstate facts, and that he's going to give you a lot of bravado. And we saw that yesterday as well. Mm-hmm. But let's not lose sight that we also saw people that landed on D-Day. We saw a child that was fighting brain cancer. We saw the first people that took advantage of the First Step, I believe the law is called. Mm-hmm. We saw some good things happen, some things that are not controversial, some things that were bipartisan. So if you really wanted to look for bipartisanship, you would find some.
You saw some, but then you clearly saw partisanship. Your thoughts on the women in white?
Listen, I think that it's always good when we have diversity. And I thought that having more women in Congress than ever before was a great thing. It gives hope to a lot of young girls, especially my daughter, who sees females that look like her that are getting elected to make laws for 350 million people. That's a good thing. So I think that the statement of wearing white was one that was remarkable. It was one that applauded and celebrated women's suffrage. And it also did another thing that we have to be honest about. It was sending a message to the president that these women are there in response to his election, in response to his rhetoric, in response to some of the things they saw in his campaign, and they were going to be loud about it. So I'm sure not everyone watching today will agree with me, but I think it's a positive thing when we see activism, when we see more diversity, and I think having so many women there gives hope to a lot of young girls.
You talked about, the president did talk about the wall, but one thing that he did not speak about really was the shutdown.
No, why would he? That's negative. The shutdown hurt his poll numbers, and last night was about helping his poll numbers as well as trying to unite the country, like I mentioned earlier. So he mentions the investigations, which I think was a little shallow on his part, that there can't be legislation with investigations. I mean, I don't know if he was listening to old Johnny Cochran tapes before um, going out there yesterday trying to match. If it doesn't fit, you must have quit. But I think that he's going to skip the things that hurt his poll numbers. He didn't talk about the shutdown. Another thing he didn't talk about, Dreamers. That concerned me. I know it concerned a lot of Bronxites. He didn't talk about Puerto Rico. Concerns me, concerns a lot of Bronxites. So there's a lot of things he didn't mention.
Right. And when we talk about Nancy Pelosi, obviously, as we said at the top of the interview, that normally it is her job to introduce the President of the United States. That did not happen. What do we know there?
Listen, I think that the president's going to realize that we now have divided government. And there's a little bad blood between Nancy Pelosi and the president. You know, you got to give a little kudos there to Nancy Pelosi. She still is the only person I know that doesn't have a nickname. I know Darren, if he knew you and me, we'd both have nicknames by now. I'd be Chubby JC. I won't even say what he say about you, Darren. But the fact that the speaker doesn't have a nickname, I think, shows that he respects her. And she goes toe to toe with the big dude in the room. And you're gonna sense that every time they're in the room, whether it's in a conference, whether it's at the State of the Union, when they're negotiating, you're going to see that the president knows that the person in front of him is someone that he has to take seriously.
When we talk about moving forward, obviously after this speech, today's the day we do a lot of like Monday morning quarterbacking or Wednesday morning quarterbacking, if you will. Let's get to what do we think is going to happen from here? Obviously, both sides go back to their respective corners, and then what?
Well, I think that we're going to see a bump in the president's poll numbers after last night. He hit some things that I think did that. For example, when he mentioned the fact that he's going to fight to end partial birth abortion, I think that's something that's going to resonate with a lot of moderates and a lot of Hispanics and a lot of African Americans across the country that may not like Trump, but really hate partial birth abortion. So you're going to see him going around the country and talk about those things that may bring some moderates and independents that just despise Trump, but really want nothing to do with that stuff. And then you're going to see him go around the country talking about the First Step Act and how he's fighting for Black and Hispanics that have been wrongly incarcerated for long periods of time. That's going to bring people on his side. He's going to keep talking about the job numbers and how women are now filling in new jobs that were created. I think 58% of new jobs that were created were filled by women. So if he's smart, he will read a script and stick to message. If he's not, he'll go off on tangents and start talking about, things that really will push people away from him.
All right.
When he starts name calling and starts exaggerating the numbers of criminal undocumented immigrants in the country, I think most moderates and independents are going to view that as fear mongering, and it's going to hurt him in the long run. So let's hope as a country for us to have some peace for a couple of months and have him talk about some of the positive things that are happening.
All right. Well, thank you. You do have a nickname. It's JC Polanco, our guest in studio.
No, Chubby JC.
Chubby JC. Okay. Well, thank you, Chubby JC. We'll definitely bring you back. Thanks so much for sharing with us.
Thank you, Darren.
All
have
right.
a good day.
Take care, JC. All right. Listen, taking a quick break. We're going to have more open. Stay with us. We're coming right back right after this.